All right, so we went over our simple how we're going to go about making our simple container, something that has multiple components, which is now really explicit when we start a new project. But as opposed to them just being single objects, these are different components within because we can apply a joint tool to this and actually click and drag and open and close. Now, this model here was using an imported model. We are going instead to make something that has, like in this case, a semblance of an Oreo, and it is a convenient little pocket case to hold two Oreos. Again, I'm just entertained by that. So let's actually get a start on something simple. So we're going to start a new design, and this is what I meant by one of the new things that Fusion has done. The default, or at least the first one, is part design. Part would be individual parts. An assembly would be importing all of those parts into one project and making them all interact somehow. We're going to skip right over that, and we're going to use the hybrid design, which is the default design or the default layout for Fusion prior to this most recent update or whatever. So if you forget, it's not a big deal. I'll start a new project in the part design just to show you. Start a new project. If you forget, just like if you need to change measurements, mouse over to the left on the project tree, mouse down to units. You would say units if I wanted to change from millimeters to inches or anything else like that. I don't, but just showing you. But the new one is part design. Mouse over the word part design, and the little pencil symbol shows up. Left click on that. Toolbox pops up on the far other side of the screen, and that allows you to select hybrid. Convert. All that does is bring in a few extra tools up to the toolbar and stuff that aren't on individual projects, like assemble, new components, stuff like that. And one of the main ones we're going to be using tonight is just that, new component. A component contains everything. So by default, say like any of the projects we've had so far, you will have your whole project. Let's say there's your project tree, and then until we say something. Yeah, I had to remember how to spell untitled. It'd say that, and then below you'd have your bodies, sketches, whatever. If I add new components, a component can contain all of those. So each component can have its own bodies and sketches and yada, yada, yadas. So you can have multiple components on a project, and it will help you organize. For the sake of tonight, it will also allow you to make stuff move. So let's go ahead and start with that right now. We're going to default as just, yep, leaving it there. We're going to build it here. What do we do first? Save. I put on the 00 for mine to stay at the top. You put on your name. And in class, I'll make a pencil box. You do whatever you want. Now, since this project requires at least you to actually have a semblance of your intended object for it to go inside, I'm personally going to start by making that object. So I'm going to start by making a pencil. Makes sense to me to start there. I'm going to start with a sketch because with these pencils, I already know the simplest way, or I can see the simplest way, not looking at it from the side, but instead looking at it from the front. It's a hexagon. Easy peasy. So I'm going to start a sketch. Instead of on the XY plane where it'd be going straight up, I'm going to start it on the side so the pencil can lie down. So I'm going to start on the XZ. And we haven't gone over this tool yet, but go to Create and Polygon. Easy way to make multi-sided circles. And you see you have two objects, circumscribed or inscribed. It's just based off of a circle, and then it puts sides onto it. No big deal there, whatever you want to use. In this case, it's really not it doesn't really matter one way or the other. Start out, and it just opens up just like a circle. I'm going to use my calipers that I was just showing y'all to measure just quickly. I should have switched over to millimeters. How big is that? That's about 7 millimeters side to side. Hey, that's pretty excellent. It was already at 7. All right, 7, and it's a 6-sided object. Bam. All right, that's going to be my circle. No, that's pretty easy. I'm going to move that just so I can put it and a little bit easier spot to work with. I'll put it right in the center. Close enough. Okay. And that's really all I need to do for this. Finish sketch. And I'm going to extrude that to be, well, I should have measured how long this is, but that's about 160 or so millimeters. There we go. What's that?
7. Would you want an 8?
What?
The case.
Oh,
Oh
yeah, I'm just making a symbol. That's okay. And then just for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to add a cylinder. I can draw on the surface there. If you mouse close to the center, you'll see it change, hopefully, to about the center. And I don't know, we're just, like I said, we're just making this close enough is close enough. And we'll just say, I don't know, that's about almost 20. I'll add details to it later. I could even throw on, if I really feel like it, maybe even a fillet over here, and I'll see how far I can push that. Not a great idea. That doesn't work whatsoever, unless I'm making a tiny Zeppelin. All right, so I'll leave it as a untrimmed pencil. That'll be close enough. Now, I do still want to add like the ferrule, little details like that. I'll make it yellow, doesn't matter. But right now, I just wanted to show you a quick semblance. All right, pencil. Now, with this, I can do this separately, or I could have done it before. I just want to show you all that you can still do this afterwards. So I have that body, pencil. I'm going to go up to where it says assemble and says new component. Or if I drop down, don't insert component, just new component. And with that body, I'm going to click OK. And now that creates, you can see this little symbol. It started a new one over here, labeled pencil, and it contains now that pencil body. So that is already separate. But I want you to be aware, pay attention what happens when I started that. You can activate different components of your project and you can work and build inside of that. But it's easy to accidentally start getting things mixed up if you forget that you have or have not activated a component. So if you look, if I mouse down here, you can see this little circle with a dot on it. That's showing that my pencil component that I just created is active. I don't want that to be that. I want the whole project active. So I'm going to mouse all the way back up. See a little circle with no dot that appears? When I click that, now the whole thing is active. Doesn't matter right now because I haven't made anything else, but that's going to be the easiest way to get lost or keep things organized. So with that in mind, I'm going to start a new component that doesn't have anything in it. Doesn't matter which way you go, but a good habit to get into as you start with this stuff, create your components before. So I'm going to start a new component. See, it's highlighting that, but it's not actually going to do anything. So with this, I'm going to say, well, let's change it to pencil box. Now that automatically started. I shouldn't have done that. I meant to click the, let me Control Z and show you again. New component. Well, now I can't spell. Before I hit OK, if I mouse down where it says activate and uncheck this checkbox, now when I hit OK, it creates the component, but it does not automatically activate it. That's good for when you are like just laying things out or you're just wanting to create a new component, because you can still also drag and drop things. So if I started something and forgot, oh, I meant to add this to a component, or I'm going to organize afterwards, I could actually move these pencils. So like the pencil object, and I can drag it where it says the pencil component, pencil box, and it now is in pencil box component. I don't want that, but just know that if you forget, you can drag and drop. You can move your objects, be that sketches, bodies, whatever, between components. So I'm going to Control Z that because I don't want that there. But now I do want to work on the pencil box component. So I'm going to mouse down. I'm going to activate the pencil box component that I just started, and you'll see that object that I just made, the pencil, kind of ghost out. that's okay. It's showing you a reference, and I can still interact with that if need be. So, like, if I wanted to draw on that surface or something like that, you can. But this lets you just have a reference, and you can focus on what you're building now. So what I'm going to build is a pencil box based on the size of that pencil. So I'm going to start with a sketch, and I'm going to start now on the XY plane, like I'm looking straight down. And that is obnoxious. I'm going to rotate it. I'm just going to draw like a box around that, whatever seems right. In this case, I usually like to work right from the center, and so I should have moved this pencil over, but if you forget, it's not a big deal. Other thing is, if I do want to build it based off of this pencil, remember we talked before, I can project, I can copy the outline of this. So I press P on my keyboard or go to create and go to project, P, same thing. And on my toolbox, I'm going to select bodies because I want just the outline of the whole thing. And the reason I did that is now if I need to hide the other component, I don't have the actual object to interact with or mess up my current project, but I now have a nice outline to work from. And this works great because now I can use a center rectangle and kind of build it right in there. So to measure, let me start a line. I'll from one side to the other, go right in the middle, and I'll draw it all the way to the end. And I'm going to turn that into a construction line. So I'll highlight the line and either go over here to construct or just press X because I just want that as a reference point. That's it. Now I can use my center point rectangle, measure out. When I get to the center, it turns to a triangle. Yeah, let's build it, I don't know, somewhere that size-ish. Let's make it a little bit more even because even numbers just are less bothersome. 200 millimeters by, I don't know, yeah, sure, 28. We can make this much larger if we plan to make more of them. So, I don't know, let's say 35, maybe 40. If I planned on making more of them, more pencils, so it holds more than a single pencil, there you go. But we're getting the idea. Cool, there we go. And honestly, that can work. That's it. We're done. Finish sketch. Because I just need a simple box in this case. And from here, now I have my pencil box project component. I'm going to extrude. Make sure you get both of them. Or if you need to hide that part of the sketch, whatever. And let's see here. Let's unhide the pencil itself so I make sure I'm making it big enough. Let's extrude up. We should probably make it a little bit larger. So let's say 8 instead. So I think I'm going to make both sides 8 millimeters. All right. That's a simple extrusion. New body. Cool. Now, one of the things is the good thing is make sure that didn't accidentally. All right. The colors are just really similar. That's irritating. I want to make sure that those two didn't join together. And so I'm pressing and holding shift and pressing in the letter N, November, on my keyboard, and it automatically assigns a color. You can see on the project tree, the pencil box default color is like this, more of pink, and the pencil is more orange, but they're real close together, so that's a bit irritating. But there we go. So I have the start of a simple thing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another one of those. I want to make the lid. So whether or not I start from the sketch or right on top, because it's just a simple square, extrude, same thing. Let's go up 8. But make sure on the toolbox where it says operation, I don't want to join. I want a new body. You can even throw it into a new component right here, but I'll do that afterwards. So new body. Okay. So now I have what's going to be a top and bottom, but those are solid objects. I'm going to hide the pencil for now. And let's go ahead and label these. Bottom and lid. Easy to keep things separate. Okay. So let's go ahead and throw those into their own components now. So with the pencil box project or component active, I'm going to create a new component. And I'm going to show you 2 different ways because you could do it either way. If I go ahead and select the lid body and then go to new component, it's going to throw that into its own component, already labeled lid, all of that. If I forget new component, and I want that to be the bottom, Forgot, oh crap, the bottom's still in the other component. I can drag and drop that bottom into the bottom component. And now you see that it is coloring everything differently. So it doesn't matter which way you go. I'm going to save. I know this sounds like a very roundabout way of making two boxes or two like rectangles, but these are the steps you're going to need to have. All right, so we have our two components. We have our two sides. Kind of. Those are just bricks. Let me hide the lid. I want to hollow this out, obviously. The easiest way to hollow this stuff out is one of the tools over modify or drop down modify is shell. And it does exactly that. It takes your solid object and makes it hollow inside. So if I press shell, and this is the bottom, so you start with whatever face you select first is what it will open up entirely. And let's say I want this to be a 2mm thick wall. Press 2, and you can see it automatically hollows out the whole thing with a 2mm wall. This works on almost anything. I say almost because too complex of an object, and it won't work very well. But the cool thing is about shell is what if I had, I actually wanted this to be kind of rounded. So let's say, let me move my history slider before the shell tool was applied. And let's say on the bottom, I had wanted to put like a fillet. And I'll put like, I don't know, a 1mm fillet around the whole bottom. Let's make it 2, make it a little bit bigger. Okay. Let me hide the sketch, and you can see, so I've got a curved, so it's kind of got a curved bottom there. Now when I go forward and apply the shell, well, it's too thick. Let's make that more significant, like a 5mm. The shell automatically calculates because the shell is like an offset tool. And just so you can see what I'm doing, I'm going to apply one of those section analysis that I told you about. It's using the inspect tools. I don't expect you to keep all this in mind. And I'm just going to drag this forward. You can see a cross section now. So if I had not done the applied that fillet, let me suppress this for a moment. It would just be square. But because I put a fillet on beforehand, the shell took that offset and automatically applied it. You could, of course, add, if you wanted to later, a fillet to the outside and inside separately or whatever, but just showing you that shell will work on most anything. If it's too complex, it'll give you errors, but it's a pretty cool tool. All right, so let me turn off that analysis. Great, I got that. Let's do the same for the lid. So I'm going to activate the bottom component, and you can see this also organizes all of my tools. So bottom has that shell applied. If I go and activate the lid component, it's just when I drop that in. Let me hide the bottom component. I'll apply the shell. 2mm wall thickness. Bam. So it's showing the tools here when I'm drag and drop the object in and the shell. If I activate the bottom, it's the fillet and the shell. If I activate the whole pencil box, it's going to show me a breakdown of what is applied to the pencil box, the lid, and the bottom, or both, because it works like that. Pretty great. It just helps keep you organized. And it looks like I'm starting to make a Neapolitan ice cream bar. Anyway, might be getting hungry. Anyhow, we have a hollow box now. And I'll unhide the pencil inside. If I hide the lid for a minute, great. That is really frustrating that the colors are so close, but it is different. It's just automatically applied really close colors. All right. Shell piece. So now got that applied. If I had made like details, like on this project case here, if I had made these ridges and things before I applied the shell, it would actually do exactly like it's showing here and actually have those ridges show up on the inside as well. It's a really effective tool. All right, great. Got my pencil box, but it's just a box. Let's add a hinge to it. I'm going to show you two different types of hinges or two different ways of making the hinge. The first type is basically like a barrel hinge. If you've opened a door, look at the hinge, that's what it is. Essentially, it's a circle with a hole in the center that you would drop some kind of a pin or something through. So what I'm going to do is, well, this is the problem with making a project that's not smack in the middle. but we'll deal with it. So what I'm going to do is I want to create a sketch, and I'm going to activate the whole project tree, or at least the pencil box. I don't need anything outside of it, but not the lid or the bottom, because this will apply to both. So I have pencil box applied, create a sketch, and I want this on the XZ plane. If I can't quite get to it, don't forget, you can always just hide that. There we are. Doesn't matter if I'm looking at it from the front to the back, same effect. You pick which side you want to work from. If it's going to be on the top or the front or the back, right now that's irrelevant, but there we are. I'm going to use project again because I want to copy the outside of this. Copy the top, copy the bottom. And the reason for that is now when I hide those, I have my outline. Makes things easier. A barrel hinge is just a simple circle hinge with some nubs on the end. So I'm going to start with a circle, but I'm going to go to create, circle, and instead of center or anything, I want a 2-point circle in this case, because what I could do, I can put 1 point smack in the middle where the top and bottom meet, and then the other one is somewhere out here. Now, this requires a little bit of foreknowledge in so much as, well, how big do I want that hole to be? And I want to make sure there would be enough material around that to work. So in this case, if we were using like a little pin or something, decide on how big the pin is. What I'm actually going to show you is how to use, the idea would be to actually use a length of filament rod as your pin and just feed that down the hole, and you would like glue that on either end. You could also use, if you had like a bit of wire, some metal rod, whatever you're going to use, an actual screw or bolt and nut, whatever you're going to use, keep that in mind. But in this case, I'm going to end up, I want to show you all how, and we'll obviously print this and I'll explain it later, or we'll demonstrate later, but I'm going to use a length of filament to feed through there. And that filament is 1.75 millimeters in diameter. So if I need to make it at least that big, let's make sure it's got a little bit of meat around it so it wouldn't collapse around. So let's say 4 millimeters. That seems excessive, but I'm showing you for demonstration. All right, that's it. So that's going to be my circle. Now I can create a center point circle that is 1.75 millimeters. But we want to have a little bit of space. And a general rule for clearance is anywhere between 0.1 millimeter and 0.15 millimeter. So give yourself a little extra space. So if the actual diameter of that filament is 1.75, I should bump this up to more like 1.85 or 1.9 just to make sure I have enough space. So let's say 1.85. Whoop, that's whatever the heck I just typed there. A little bit bigger, that's all. And the other part is, if you looked at a hinge, if you looked at any of the examples we've messed with, it needs some sort of a little tab. So you got the circle and some sort of a tab. One, this actually allows the hinge, the circle, to actually attach to the thing. But if we use like an angled bit like this, remember we talked about when it also comes to printing things, overhangs and underhangs. If you have on the side a circle and your model goes to start printing, oh, that's a Sharpie. Also a Sharpie. They're all Sharpies. Layer, 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 layer. That creates an overhang. But we have that tab for it. It won't need supports to print. So that's what we're going to do. So all I'm going to do is literally draw a couple lines. So I'm going to take a line tool somewhere on top. You can go all the way to the top, somewhere toward the top. Great. Somewhere on the bottom. It could be right there, be even further down. Totally up to you. One quick thing, we can also make these even by using the constraints tangent. The tangent tool, if I turn that on, select a line. What do I want to create a tangent with? And the second thing you select is what will be a tangent to on a circle. So it kept where I selected the original point where it connects to the box, but it just moved so that line is now tangent on that circle. You don't have to do that. It just cleans up your model. That's it. These are automatically closed sketches. You can mouse over. You see that that little wedge creates a little like ice cream cone circle there or triangle there. Those are closed sketches. We're good. So that's literally it. 2 circles and 2 lines. Now, I told you this kind of messed up my project. Let me unhide these because I didn't make my project smack in the middle. As in, I should have used the origin as the center point for my project. It's not a big deal. It's just a mild pain. If you want, we can always do like a measurement of like, let's just take a measurement of how long is that line? 200. Okay. So let's make a construction plane. We did this before, an offset plane. When you were making your emboss. And I know it's not actually at 100, but if you do that, now you can sketch like more or less right in the center. So it's not that big a deal. It just makes it a little bit more of a pain. All right. So the reason for that is we activated the pencil box, the whole project. This sketch is sitting out here, which is going to be my hinge. I'm going to extrude a couple of extrusions, but the cool thing is if I activate whatever component I want it to be on, it will automatically appear on that. So doesn't matter, like on any of these, if the long part is in the bottom or the top, it's really up to you. The kind of default is make the long part on the bottom and the 2 side ones on the top. It's your model, do whatever you want. So but I'll keep to the regular. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude this, but first I'm going to activate the bottom component. So it highlights there. Extrude. I need the circle. I don't need the inside. I need the bottom tab. So I'm going to click and drag or just add this. Let's say, I don't know, let's make it 50. It's automatically going to connect to there. Of course, I kind of buggered up everything when I didn't make this smack in the middle. So what I instead am going to do on the toolbar here, instead of the default being the profile plane, which is where you originally made your sketch, I'm going to select object and that construction plane I just made. So now it's going to start over there. But it's going to start going one single direction. And instead of it going one single direction, I'm going to change the tool setting to symmetric. Of course, now it's going 50 millimeters in either direction. I don't want that. So another option, but you're going to go, you can see the little thing that popped up, says these little symbols that have the red line going in either directions. It's either half length or whole length, meaning if I switch it to whole, it's 50 millimeters on the whole. I know that's way too many steps. That's just because I messed up before. So hey, you kind of have to work your way back. And it's going to operation join. That is automatically joined to the bottom. Now, of course, it hid that sketch, which is obnoxious. But the next steps won't be nearly as convoluted. Next thing, I'm going to select and activate the lid component. So the bottom one kind of ghosts out. The top one becomes more clear. You do the same. Extrude. Mouse into that sketch. I need the outside and the top one. And I'm going to start, instead of profile plane, just like I did before, object. And this time, though, I can select the face of the bottom. And now just either type it in or drag it, whatever. Let's say 15. Oh, by the way. And you can see that because I have the lid component active, it's automatically joining and becoming part of the top. Cool. Do that one more time for the other side. Extrude. Those 2. Start is that object. I'm going to orbit around, select that little face, and do the same. What did I make that? 15? Cool. There you go. So I'm going to now activate the whole thing, or actually I could activate the entire project. And now I have a case that has, well, like I said, I kind of messed that up because I didn't make it right in the middle, but I can always go back and change that, so whatever. But I have my parts, top and bottom. So I'm going to save there and check on everybody. Hinge modeled. Okay, So we made our lid, we made our base, we have our pencil adjacent shape inside. All right, let's make the actual hinge, or the joint rather. So I don't actually need a pin inside. I just need to have the model basically modeled to where it looks like it would work. As in, I couldn't make the joint function without this hinge modeled. So when I mouse over, what this will be is a symbol. If I mouse over, what we're going to is joint, which is one of the default tools showing up above. It looks like a door hinge. So you get where we're going with this. A joint allows you to create some sort of relationship, as in they can move, they can revolve. You can even put what's called a rigid joint, where it just glues them together, like it would be like two parts. Say you're making like a case that you would be then gluing together, and you can apply what's called a rigid joint. It would still show the relationship, still do different parts, but it would just demonstrate it as kind of being joined together. Or like in this case, it's showing some kind of a pin inside, whatever. You can show, there are multiple tabs on it. So let's go ahead and activate the joint tool and work from there. 1 second. Okay. So I activate the joint tool, and what this does is you have to create you have to make two different selections. One is the thing that will move, one is the thing that it will move in relation to. So what we're going to do is, you can see as I mouse over surfaces, you can see it trying to snap one where my cursor is, that little like gimbal looking thing that has like, it has a green, red, and blue lines on it, which relate to the axes. And you can see all these points and things. These are all places you could select, but we want it to be in relation to this here tube we just made. Now you can make it appear smack in the middle of the whole thing, or it could be like right up on one of the two sides of the joint where there would be like a sliding surface. That's close enough. So what we want to move will be the lid. That's what we'll move. So if it helps, just hide the bottom for now. And I want it to appear right on that plus sign. Now the snaps have gotten significantly better on this. So as I mouse over this face, you see the face highlights of the inside of the hinge. I'm not outside. I hid the base, so I'm selecting on the inside. And as I mouse over that open cylinder, I can usually get it to snap there. If you have trouble getting it to snap there, what you can do is mouse over the shared face, press and hold Control on your keyboard, and now it locks your selection to only things on that face, and it makes it easier to snap to that floating spot on the hollow cylinder. Now see how the lid now kind of ghosted out? Now I'm going to unhide the bottom, and I'm going to end up selecting the exact same spot. So if it helps, hide the lid. I need that spot again, but see, since it's already selected, it doesn't want to let me select there. So this is where I press and hold Control while I'm mousing over that face. Now it'll let me snap right there. Unhide the lid. Cool. All right. Now on this, there are two tabs. There's the position of the joint itself, and then the motion joint. So let's go over here. The default one is rigid, and you can animate them. Try it out. Rigid just gives you anxiety. But it's showing it's like they're glued together. Oh my God, stop that.
Yeah, that is giving me.
Yeah, exactly. I don't pull that out of nowhere. What I want is the next one down, revolute. And if you selected it correctly, like the lid first and then the bottom, it will animate exactly that. Preview it. Now, obviously, it's going to clip through itself right now because we put no constraints or anything on it. But there we go. That's really what I wanted to do. I just wanted to rotate it like that. Hit OK. And now you can see and let me collapse this stuff. Under the pencil box component, there is a relationships folder now, and that's where the joint is. So now I can adjust. Oh, right. Now it's a folder for joint. Oh my God. They keep changing things. So now I want to adjust this. But right now, if you try to click and drag, that's not what I wanted at all. So there's two steps. I need to make adjustments to that joint so it only opens and closes so far. But I need it to not, when I click and drag, float away. So first step is what I need to do is I need to lock one of those in position. So I'm going to lock the bottom in. So as I mouse over the component that I've labeled bottom, I want you to right click on it, and at the very top, we're going to say pin. It's the second one down. It literally pins that bottom into virtual space. So now I should be able to click and drag, and it will open and close. It'll still clip through itself, but it will stay put. Now, one thing might pop up. This happens sometimes. You see on the lid component, I didn't do anything to that, but see the little anchor symbol? Sometimes that grounds things, it locks it in place. If you're having trouble, right click and then just unground from parent. It's no longer grounded, it's free to move. Sometimes that becomes an issue. So if you do all these steps, like it still is not doing anything, check that, make sure that it's not grounded to parent. That's all. Now I can click and drag the lid, but it still clips. Okay. And just so you know, when I do that, not the sound effect, but look at the upper right hand corner. This new tool pops up whenever I do that. It's asking if I want to capture what's called capture position. It's asking if I want to keep that locked in that place. So again, this would be like if I was making a robot arm and I got everything built together and it's all connected and it's all joints are working, everything. I wanted to position it and then leave it in that position. I would capture that position. That's why, rather than going back to default and however the hell it's putting back. If I don't, either Control or Command Z and then just hit revert position and it snaps back to the original. That's it. So I want to adjust that joint. So I'm going to open the relationships folder, open the joints folder, and when I mouse over what's called revolute, that little orange arrow, left click that, brings up a toolbox. I'm just going to check these minimum and maximum, and let's just put like 180 in there. Or you can drag it by these little arrows, something like that. Doesn't have to be 180. There we go. And now if I press the little animate button, now it'll only open and close that far. So that's it. So that's really all we're gonna do for that. Now we're gonna make the pins and all that stuff later, but really want to just kind of get started with that. So the idea there would be I would make like a pin that goes into there. Like in this case, has a facsimile of the filament. I'm just gonna make like a cylinder. So just as this last part here, I'm just gonna save that. Joint slide. I'm just gonna make a simple cylinder. So I'm gonna reactivate the whole project. Cylinder tool. And we're gonna start it like right on this face. See if it'll let me create right there. Nope. But if I select on that plane, I'll be able to put it right in the middle. Neat. What is the actual width of that stuff? 1.75 millimeters. And then I'm just going to drag it the whole length. If you make it too far, that's all right. Technically, that would be ideal. Not a big deal. So, and you see now, because I activated the whole project, it comes out green like that. That's just showing it's a different component. That's it. So ideally, what would end up happening is we would feed a little bit of that filament wire through and just like glue it, or even use like a soldering iron and just kind of melt it on either end. Bam, you have a pin built in place. And there you go. A really simple and mildly awkward pencil case. So we're gonna add snaps and things like that to it, but we're gonna take a break for a minute and then we'll come back to it. So that is the outright basics of what we're gonna be doing, and that's really what I want to focus on tonight. If we can get there, great, but otherwise we'll wait till next class to create the actual, like, where's the example that has it? There we are. The actual snappable feature in there that would work with actually snapping and closing. So we'll see where we get to tonight, but for right now, there's our painfully simple case. We can always throw things like fillets and all kinds of fun onto that later. You do you. But just remember that if you do throw too much on there, you can either get some ideally pretty cool features, or it's going to mess things up. And right now, that is really messing that up because I just made a hole in that. So If you're going to apply fillets, things like that, I would do that before you make your shell. If at worst, crud, I meant to do that. Okay. Control Z that. Go back. Let's activate the lid component. Drag it back before we did the shell. And that's where you could throw in that fillet. I don't know, wherever the heck that ended up being. Reapply all the things. But do know that then you're going to have to rework that hinge because that sketch no longer applies. But you can make those adjustments. It's a pretty simple fix just by adjusting your sketch. And so there's always going to be some kind of workaround when you make changes. So just know that. There we go. Okay, let's take a break. Okay, so we left with just this simple hinge onto this opening and closing box. Main thing is I wanted to show you just a couple of quick things with like as far as like a latch. We're not going to get to latch today, but I do want to show you just some simple like a thumb catch style. And this is simply like literally just a sketch and extrude as well. So in the same kind of vein of how we made the hinge, this would simply be let me activate the component that is the entire pencil box so it holds both the lid and bottom, and we'll start a new sketch. So we'll start a sketch, but instead of for the top, bottom, or anything like that, what I'd like to do, I'm going to highlight the lid, just for instance, and I'm going to use the top edge of the bottom as a starting point. Yeah, revert. As my sketch, just that way it does in fact split. And let me unhide it now, and you can see why. Because it now creates a sketch right between the top and the bottom plane. So it just makes it easier to work from there. That's all. So as far as like the idea of like a little thumb catch, all I'd be doing is making like something around there. So again, I'm going to use the project. I'm going to copy, sure, plane there. And then why don't I go ahead and project that too? Just, oop, there we go. All righty. So that way, if we do hide that stuff, I have my outlines to work from. And the only reason I would do that is say, what if I wanted to keep this smack in the middle? Cool. I could just take like a measurement or so, and where would be the center? Right about there. Draw something out there. Okay. I don't need that, but that's just a good reference point. I am going to turn that into a construction line. So I'd highlight that line I just drew, press X, little dotted line. There we are. And the reason I'm doing that is I'm going to draw a circle on either side of that. So I'm going to use, just because I don't want to have to measure, let the program do the work because I'm lazy, I'll use 2 center point circles. So I'll start the center point there and go outward. I don't know, 15, sure, whatever. And then I'll repeat that. And if you haven't learned yet, if you right click just somewhere, it will bring up the variety of simple tools, and up top will be the most recent tool you used. Just an easy way to kind of speed things up. Do the same. 15. No, not 415. Wait, way too much.
The biggest hinge you ever
Just 15, please. Your hinge is bigger than the box itself. That doesn't work. Okay. Hey. So it just ends up with these 2 hemispheres, which I mean, or hemicircles rather, which doesn't really work as well. They should probably overlap, but whatever. So finish sketch, okay. Unhide the lid, unhide the bottom. And the reason I did that is, again, if I activate the lid component, I can extrude one of those, drag it up, and it automatically connects to the top. Let it join, good. Activate the bottom component, extrude the nub on the bottom, go down, and it automatically connects to the bottom. Join, okay. Activate the whole thing again, or both sides. And now what I could do is something like, let's throw like a fillet on that corner, drag it out, and you can end up with some pretty neat stuff. Obviously, you can end up with just a problematic stuff too, but play around with these things. So like maybe fillet on the corner first, and then repeat that fillet, and now use that. And now we can go up and out or something like that. I don't know. This is your project. You play around with it. Do the same thing on the bottom. Repeat fillet. All right. I will put a little bit of a fillet on that one. Do it again. Neat. And there you go. So that would be like a simple, like little kind of thumb catch. No big there. Or thumb catch. Okay. The other thing I wanted to show y'all is we can play with two different types of hinges later, but this is a really simple one. We can always add nubs and things like that later. But the other thing I wanted to show you, because a few people were already had asked about, and I could already see that they were making round containers. So how do you put a hinge on a round container? Very simple, actually. Let me just start a new project, HYBIRD Design. I'm going to kind of speed run these first two parts. Don't really need too much, as in I'm going to make a cylinder. Sure, right about there. I don't know. We'll make it 45, and I'll make it, because I'm going downward, let's make it 20. I don't know. I'm just making two parts. Repeat the cylinder, same deal. 45, go up, I don't know, 10. I do not want that to join. I want that to be two separate bodies. Bam. All right. And then I will create a sketch perpendicular to that. Project to copy those two bodies. 2-point circle. I'm doing the exact same thing here. 2-point circle. What did we say? That was like 5 before. Right. Inside of that circle, I want a center point circle. And 1.75 for this, for the filament, plus 0.1 millimeter, so it would be 1.85. Just giving myself a little bit of space. Let's put a couple of triangles onto there so it would print easier. Whereabouts doesn't really matter. Put a constraint just to even that out. Completed sketches. Great, finished sketch. Now let's go ahead and make a couple of components to make this easier. Make this easier on myself too. Sure, body, whatever. Highlight the lid, new component, bam. Highlight the body, new component, bam. All right, now we, let's say the bottom part, extrude that sketch, so the bottom, and we want it to go symmetric both sides, and I don't know, some distance, 5, 10, oop, not M5 squared, or whatever. There we are, and it automatically hid the lid. So let's activate the lid component, extrude that sketch and that circle, starting instead at the object, that side of the plane. Whoop. 4, repeat, sketch part, nope, object, selected that part, drag outward. What did I say, 4 or 5? Yep, there we go. Okay. So activate the whole project, and you can see that I did it backwards. Shit. So what happens when I speed run? I did this exactly backwards. Ish. All right. Well, I mixed that up. That was,
You did it backwards and we don't get the end one.
you'd think, but all right. Well, that was somewhat dumb, so we'll just have to swap them around. Take one down, swap them around. 2 or 3 bodies on the floor anymore. Okay. I just got it backwards, that's all. Now, the problem here is obviously going to be that looks the part from the side, but when I go upwards, pooper doodles, there's a bit of a gap. The pretty easy fix. Now, one quick thing, I had not already hollowed this out. You should definitely apply the shell before you add these tabs. So again, I'll shell, I don't know, 2 millimeters. Great. Same thing. Activate the body. Did I label these backwards too? Yep.
Yes.
See, that's what messed me up. So what happens when you go too fast? You mess things up. All right. Well, let's just relabel that. Okay. Now I'm slightly less confused, which is really saying something. Slightly less confused. All right. So what I need to do is essentially, I just need to connect those. One of the tools we haven't played with, but often enough, you should be able to, let's just hide. See, I've got it all labeled wrong too. Oh my God. There. Lid, 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 lid. What I should be able to do is I can just take these faces here and extrude these faces far enough forward to where they just take up the gap there. Now, I already had the shell applied, but if I keep extruding too far, it's going to go inside. So just be cautious you don't take it all the way through. Operation, it's asking if I want to join them together. Yes, I do. Bam. Now that's all one solid piece. Do the same for the bottom. Make sure to actually activate the bottom component. Let's unmess this up. Same deal. It gets hard to select there, so let's hide the bottom object for a minute. Extrude, and I can just select that actual face. Drag it inward a little bit so it connects. It's asking if I want to join. Yes. There we are. So, same deal. I did the exact same thing. The only problem is, aside from me getting some things backwards at first, if it's a round object of any type and you want to add the hinge, it's the exact same kind of hinge. You just need to add that one extra step of extruding those faces inward until it joins, or you can join it afterwards just so it intersects, but don't take it so far that it interferes. The reason I did this, the reason I said make sure to do the shell before you put this on, if you don't, it's going to try to shell around this tab as well, and it'll mess things up. So the shell works really well, but it works on everything. So if you just stagger, or if you just rearrange your steps a little bit, you can make it work really easily for you. So that's pretty much it. And I can add that little tab and thing there. So I wanted to spend the rest of the time working with people. These are the basics. Next class, when we get to this point, get to your finished, and then we'll with whatever kind of things, and then we'll add like the latches and other elements. So we'll work with it, and that's where we'll go. Hopefully it works out for you and you don't get things backwards like I just did.